We talk about the most underrated tabletop role-playing games today on Dungeon Craft.
Deathbringer here. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and sign up for the Deathbringer RPG newsletter below.
Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I'm Professor DM.
And I'm Baron Durop from Dungeon Masterpiece.
And today we are talking about the most underrated tabletop role-playing games. But before we get into that, Deathbringer, tell them what they should do.
Like, subscribe, bell, comment, newsletter, Facebook, X.
So here are the ground rules. We're talking about the most underrated yet influential role-playing games as we see them. The games must be in print, so you actually have to be able to go out and get them. So like Amber Diceless Role-Playing, very underrated, very influential, but you can't get it anymore. Right, so that's going to be off the list. And nothing on Kickstarter. These are things that you can buy today. And we're going to randomly determine who's going to go first. We're going to count down our lists from 3 to number 1. So you get your die and I will get mine. And I got a 1.
I got a 2. My number 3 is F.I.S.T by Claymore Games. I love the Maze Rats system that it's built on. And it does such a good job of really capturing what a zany Metal Gear Solid, X-Files, New World Order takeover Illuminati type game could possibly look like. And it only uses 2d6, so everything is extremely fast. You can get character creation done in under 30 seconds if you know what you're doing. All of the Dungeon Master tools are so straightforward, absolutely awesome, just tons of random tables to create like all kinds of bizarre paranormal crime syndicates for your characters to go snooping around in the secret underground bases of. Absolutely wonderful game. Go check it out.
My number 3 is Fate of the Norns Ragnarok by Andrew Valkauskas. It is a diceless Viking tabletop role-playing game, and I mentioned on the channel before, but it is really authentically Viking. Andrew wanted to make the most authentic Viking role-playing game of all time. So instead of dice, because the Vikings didn't use dice, they use runes, and you spend them like as action points to do your actions. Like the illustrations look different. They look very much like old Viking runes and old Viking pictures. And the character classes are authentic. You don't play a bard, you play a skald. There are many different types of warriors. You don't play a female fighter, you play a scorn dominatrix. And how badass is that? And it is fast, it's a lot of fun. My players actually, Andrew was kind enough to run a game for us a couple of years ago at PAX, and they all love it. And my players do love the math rocks. So that's a testament to this game. Really super cool. It's set in Ragnarok. It's like the Viking end of the world. And I actually wrote a scenario for it. It's in one of those Kickstarters. It's one of the upcoming books, I think it's going to be. But great game. Fate of the Norns Ragnarok.
My number 2 is a little stretch of the rules, but I'm going to go with West End D6 Star Wars. And I know that that's currently out of print. However, there is a community edition that is created by a bunch of people that collectively call themselves Womp Rat Studios. And you can find that community edition as a PDF for free right now. And also, I think you can print it on Lulu on demand at cost. I just have no idea how this game fell out of favor. I think it's far better than the Wizards of the Coast D20 modern-based version that came out in the early 2000s. I think it's better than the narrative dice system that is it Fantasy Flight Games?
Fantasy Flight.
Yeah, the new Star Wars RPG. And character creation in the old West End D6 Star Wars game was lightning fast. You picked a template, you assigned some skill points, you decided whether or not you were force sensitive, and you were ready for some seriously cinematic action. And it really felt like your characters were in the Star Wars universe doing heroic acts, possibly having the Force adjust what you were able to do because you had Force points to spend. It was one of the first games that I think of, except you said the James Bond game.
James Bond 007, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But it was one of the first games to use something that's like inspiration or a luck token or something like that, the Force point that allows you to modify your dice rolls.
James Bond 007 was the first game to use hero points, which you could use to manipulate your environment or your dice rolls. That was the first game to do that. But it's not in print, but it is very influential. Before we get to my number 2, Tell us about Green Dragon Fest.
Ooh, yeah. So Green Dragon Fest is a micro convention in Knoxville, Tennessee, where you get to play in a curated experience with all of your favorite dungeon masters and game designers at a venue that looks like it's right out of the Lord of the Rings. You can stay on site in a hobbit hole or in a tree house. It's just an absolutely wacky fantasy venue, and all of the meals are catered. This is not your typical con experience. There's only 50 seats available, and the professor will be one of the host dungeon masters. So if you want to check out Green Dragon Fest, check out the link in the description below at greendragonfest.com.
My number 2 is Into the Odd by Chris McDowell. So this is a really influential game. There's a whole ecosystem of games, including Cairn, and what are a couple other ones?
Cairn, Mouse Ritter, those are the 2 big ones.
You got 3 statistics, just 3 statistics. It'll be familiar to anyone that's ever played a D20 role-playing game. It is a D20 game. You try to roll under your statistics. It also pioneered the concept of automatic hitting, which now you see in like CDM. What is it? Draw Steel now?
Steel, yeah.
There's a whole Crown and Skull. This is a trend of games where you just automatically hit. And Into the Odd was the first game to do that. Great random charts. It's your number 1, isn't it?
It is my number 1.
All right, so we're going to have some crossover, so let's just segue. Why is it your number 1?
So it's my number 1 because it laid the foundation for an entire ecosystem of games. Like I mentioned earlier, you've got Cairn, Mouse Ritter, Liminal Horror. Each of these games kind of have their own niche of what they do and what they explore, but they're all built on the Into the Odd engine. And I find everyone talks about Cairn and Mouse Ritter and Liminal Horror, but nobody talks about Into the Odd and how influential it is in creating those odd-like games. But yeah, being able to just roll on a few random tables to get your character knocked out in under 30 seconds, and rolling over an armor value, and the armor soaks the damage. It eliminates half of the dice rolls for every combat round. It's absolutely lightning fast. Your inventory is your class, generally speaking. You get some prompts to roll on for your character creation. And Into the Odd is like this really weird proto steampunk style.
Yes.
Yeah. It's got a really, really cool vibe. Also, I'm going to caveat and say that Electric Bastion lands, which is kind of like the vaporwave post-punk, Into the Odd next place in the story. I don't know. It's in the same metaverse that Into the Odd is. Go check that one out as well. It's similar game mechanics. Very wacky. Very cool.
For our number 1, the honorable mention. My honorable mention is Kobolds Ate My Baby from 9th Level Games. We actually played this with the designer Chris O'Neill at Gen Con. But this game is a lot of fun. It's fast-paced. It's a comedy game. It's a great palate cleanser. And you play a kobold, obviously, and then you worship King Torg. And anytime anyone mentions his name, you say together, "All hail King Torg." And it's just a lot of fun. All right, so here's my number 1. My number 1 most underrated game, I think it's brilliant, is Easy D6 by DM Scotty from Runehammer Games. And there's a number of reasons why I love this game. First of all, I love the writing. I love the writing is great. It's so direct. It's such Scotty's voice. Like, do I have 10,000 hit points? No. You get 3 hits. That you don't calculate damage. If you get hit, you can be hit 3 times and you're killed. In recent years, probably the most influential game, aside from Dungeons & Dragons, has been the Powered by the Apocalypse system. And while it's good, I think Easy D6 is like the next step in evolution. In Easy D6, you set the target number. The Game Master sets the target number, and depending on how skilled you are, that's how many D6 you use. So let's say the target number is 4. It's not that hard, but you're super skilled. You roll 3 D6. You only need 1 4 to succeed. But also, dice explode. If you get a 6, you could do extra damage or have extra consequences. And I just love exploding dice. There ought to be more game systems based on that.
This game is actually my wife's favorite role-playing game. She played with DM Scotty himself at the last Green Dragon Fest. And she said that if she got this game, this would be the only RPG that she would want to Dungeon Master for. And that's a very high claim for her to make. If it's that easy to just pick up and play, that says a lot.
So that's my number 1 pick, Easy D6. What's your list of underrated games. We'd love for you to share in the comments below. Also below, you'll find links to Dungeon Craft Facebook and Patreon, where you can get tons of extra bonus content and join our exclusive Discord server. You also get access to my DM's notebook. Baron, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Where can we find you?
I am at the YouTube channel Dungeon Masterpiece.
And, of course, Green Dragon Fest. It's been a lot of fun having you here. Thanks for coming out and staying with me. And we ought to have a show. You know what we should call it?
What should we call
Dungeon Dudes.
That's a great idea.
We'll call it Dungeon Dudes. Thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you soon.
And may
all your rolls be 20s.
They didn't even ask my opinion for the most underrated game, Macho Women with Guns. And yes, it was real. For more great tabletop content, click on these videos.